Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inspired by Christ podcast. I'm your host, Kourtney Goff, and today we have another lovely guest. And before we get into that, but just always giving you guys a overview of what the podcast is about. We just having genuine conversation with everyday regular people to inspire people to come closer to Christ. And today we have Cris Armstrong. I'm just looking forward to this conversation. This is a dynamic woman that has so many gems to give the world. So I'm just looking forward to this conversation. So welcome, Chrissy. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Look, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So many
Yes.
things that we got to jump into, and I like I said, I'm excited. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna go into like some get to know you questions. So the first one I'm gonna ask you, these are kind of like quick hitters, but feel free to elaborate. What's your favorite TV show of all time?
Favorite TV show? Oh man. I'm trying to think of if there's one. I really love Family Matters. I
Oh,
thought that
wow.
Steve Urkel was hilarious.
That's a
Um
classic.
so I was gonna say like it'll have to be a tie between the Fresh Prince,
Uh-huh.
the original, not what they've
Original.
come out with, or Family Matters. I thought both of those were like hilarious.
I love that. We literally was watching Family Matters 2 days ago, so
Mhm.
that's
You can
literally
always throw back an episode if you need.
anytime,
Yeah.
anytime. That's funny. All right, so what's your favorite part about being a wife?
Oh my gosh. Serving, which is like, I think that it's something that is very kind of pushed to the side because a lot of women, and in society now, it's like, what are you bringing to the table? Women are like, I am the table, I am the prize.
Right.
But part of what God has given me, even since like I've been young, I love to help people. I love to serve people. So even if I'm doing something like serving dinner, or when my husband is coming home from work, like I like to make charcuterie boards.
Mm,
So even have that on the table because he's excited knowing that he has a snack. You know what I mean? Knowing
yeah.
that like he's got something to look forward to. I love doing like all of those little things that will make him happy. Because I just genuinely like seeing him happy. He's already a happy person, but he makes it very, very easy to
Yeah.
serve him. Like he's easy to serve. So like
Uh-huh.
it's something that I really, really like to do, like without even needing to be asked, honestly.
I love that. I love hearing that, and that's a great perspective to bring that servant leadership, like being able to have that heart to serve. That's a big
Mhm.
thing, even for husbands as well. So I love that, and I know brothers like to eat. So as long as we got the
Yes.
food, that's always that's a big win in our book. Next
Yes.
one. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie?
Mhm.
That is difficult because I will watch a lot of movies. I'm trying to think. I really
Even if you got a
the one
couple,
that's the
even
one
if
that's
you got a
coming to
couple.
my mind is A Walk to Remember. And
Uh-huh.
it's funny because it's kind of like a chick flick,
Uh-huh.
but it was just very heartfelt. This guy, he found somebody that was like dying of cancer.
Uh-huh.
And it was just one of those things where I love an underdog story where this
Yeah.
girl counted herself out, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then here comes this guy and he kind of, just shows love to her. And so I like that movie.
Okay, look, that's a good one. What's the name of that one again? Say it
That's
again.
called A Walk to Remember.
A Walk to Remember. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yep, it's
Sometimes
kind of in the it's a definitely a chick flick for
chick
sure.
flick. No,
Yes.
it's okay because
Yeah.
we as men we try to front like we don't like the chick flicks. But
Yep.
I'm gonna tell you right now, on Saturdays I will cuddle up with the wifey. We're gonna watch a little bit of Lifetime. So
Yep.
it's
Gotta
all
throw a
good.
lifetime movie in there to keep it spicy.
Yeah, you know what I mean, just a little something. So all right, so the next one, what's your favorite part of motherhood with being a mom?
I would say the same thing, like serving them as well. I love to create little things. Like I love to set things up. Like if we're gonna have snack or lunch, I am going to make it look cute. I make it look like an animal.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I love getting groceries and putting a snack in there that I know they specifically like, so everybody can help me put the groceries away,
Yep,
and they
yep.
can find like, oh my gosh, mommy got me this. She knows I like this, so I like serving them too. Like I love being a mom. It's the one of the best things like ever,
That's
honestly.
awesome. And so with that being like the two things with being a wife and being a mother, like servitude, like where do you feel like that comes from with you? Like where does that come from within where you just like you naturally want to serve? Because I share that same trait. So I'm curious for you where does that come
So I think that it really comes from, we have this natural makeup with us, but we also have like a spiritual makeup.
Yes.
And I think that once I identified as a kingdom citizen, like that, there was nobody was going to tell me that I was not a kingdom citizen.
Right.
Then I realized that there are certain things that just are a part of me,
Mhm.
and I would embrace them. And
Mhm.
so serving is one of those things. Like I take honor in serving God.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter what God asked me to do. Like I have a very healthy fear of the Lord. So if he's asking me to do something, I'm going to do it, but it's a pleasure to do it. And
Right.
so when I start there first, it's so much easier to do it with people. You know what I mean? Because these are his people, honestly. Like when I look at people, I look at them with the heart of the Father. Like these are God's people, and he says he does not play about his people.
It's a
So I
fact.
want to make sure that I serve them well, I honor them well. And I think with serving and honoring God, it kind of just trickled down into like now I'm a wife and I have to steward that well. And so the same way I steward my relationship with God is the same way I'm going to steward my relationship with my husband and with my children and with my friends, honestly.
That's beautiful, and it's great to hear that because, like I said, we have that commonality, and that's why I instantly thought about you being on here because you have that heart of just helping people. I've seen that since day one of meeting you, and it's just like that's the thing, like you said, that draws back to God, like that's
Yeah.
So I love hearing that. All right, so our last get to know you question. Your favorite gospel artist, like maybe if it's right now or just all in all, like who's your go-to gospel artist?
It's gonna be Kier Sheard
Okay,
every time.
okay.
Every time Kier Sheard,
I
yes.
like I like her too. I like her too. I like a couple. She in my playlist. She sprinkled in there. She got a couple of her hits that I like that get me
Yeah,
going. So she made it to my playlist.
yeah.
All right. So cool. Let's jump into our four core questions. This is a part where we jump into the inspiration to bring people closer to Christ. So with the first question, why did you give your life to Christ?
So it's so funny. Like I remember the date.
Mhm.
So we were in church. It was August like 19th,
Mm.
2017. I was graduating. I was going to college a little bit early.
Mhm.
So I spent like the last part of the summer starting school so I could get used to it. My mom signed me up for this program. And
Mhm.
so we went to church, and for some reason, I was saved. I remember being saved, but when it was time for church to start, I mean, it was bothering me from the entire time where I'm just like toiling and I'm like, why do I feel like this? Like, why do I feel nervous in church?
Mhm.
But then I remember just at the end where I said, I want to give my life to Christ.
Mhm.
Um, just as to make sure that God knows that I chose and that it
Yeah, I
wasn't because
did.
of a family member. Because
Right,
we have
right.
been in church like all of our
Yeah.
lives,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my parents are saved, my grandparents, they were very, very clear that like Jesus was our savior and we love God. And
Yeah.
so that was very clear to me. And I had no problem with it. Like I didn't question it or anything.
Right, right.
But I was just like, you know what, let me make sure that like, I got my secure spot in heaven. I don't know
Right.
why I wasn't reading my Bible. Listen, I wasn't praying. Like, I wasn't doing anything. I was ready to turn up,
Right,
honestly.
right.
I was thinking to myself, like, oh, like, let me just make sure that I'm safe for real, for real. So
Right,
I
right.
literally just declared that day, like, okay, God, you're hearing it from me.
Mm.
I want to be saved. I'm saying that you are Lord.
Mm.
And that was it. So I made sure I sealed the deal. I
Yeah.
talked to my pastor and he was, kind of like, okay, like, you were already saved. But I'm like, yeah, I just want to make sure though. I just want to
Right,
make sure.
right. Look, go on and dunk me one more time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Make sure we on
Yep.
the same page. No, and that's
Yep.
pretty common because I did the same thing. Like I grew up in church, my parents the same way saved, my grandparents the same, my grandfather was a pastor, had his own church. And like when you're younger, I feel like you go because you're there, you're going to church. Like, and if y'all was like how we was growing up, you going to Bible study,
Mhm.
choir, kids night, every senior night, everything you go into
Mhm.
it. So it's like I still remember that moment when I did do it when I was younger, but then even as I got older, I'm like, yo, I want to like, man, I feel it to go ahead and do it. So no, I definitely agree with you on that. Next question, how does Christ inspire you?
I think Christ inspires me to really be my best self.
Mhm.
So I had there have been, I mean, just being in a relationship with Christ is a journey, that just is never ending. You don't reach an endpoint, you don't reach a destination. It's just like a journey you're constantly on. So there were times where I had to unlearn some things. And part of that was knowing that if you take, for example, Psalms 23, where it talks about, the Lord is your shepherd, he's only able to do everything after that first verse if he is the Lord of your life. And so in order to do that, you have to trust him with everything. And so I had to realize that he knows what's best for me, even over what I think is best for myself. Because we like to think that we know ourselves the best.
Come on.
But the person that created us knows us the best. So if there's something about me that I'm like, yo, this is me, and God is like, no, this is not. That makes me take a back seat of like, wait a minute. Like, I thought this was something, but I'm consistently like, he has full access to tell me whatever it is. And he has access to my mind, to everything about me. So he inspires me to be my best self, because I know that I'm not even there yet. There are things that I haven't even uncovered about myself where every time he shows me something different, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know I could do this. Like I didn't know I could do that. But as I like trust that he's like, okay, I want to show you another part of yourself. And it only happens every time I seek him. So every time I seek him and I find out more about him, it unlocks another piece of me. And then I just keep building on this like part of being my better self. And so he really inspires me to like keep finding out more about him, so I can find out more about me and I can offer my best self to everybody around me, because that's the goal, is to be effective while I'm here. Like I'm an instrument, I'm supposed to be effective, and when I go up and I have to answer, because the Bible tells us we have to answer for everything that we do. I want to be able to say, I was listening to you, and you had access to me. I don't want to have any regrets standing before the throne. So
see, man, you got goosebumps, because I feel exactly what you're saying. Like, and I have those same thoughts too. And a lot of people don't like to think that way. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect or anything, but I'm just chasing progression. Like, listen to what you're saying. Like, that's my mentality, because like, even if I fall, I'm like, okay, I got to get back up, because again, the inspiration comes from Christ. And that journey through life, you're going to have some ups and downs, because we make decisions that we think is right in the moment, but they're wrong. And sometimes we know in the moment that they are wrong, and we still make them decisions. But it's like, to your point, like giving Christ the full access. It's like, I'm here to do whatever it is that you want me to do. And to me, that's huge right there. I love that, what you just said. So thanks for sharing that. So then now, like with the next question, this is like to the person that's on the fence. Like maybe a person on the fence, like maybe they grew up in church and now they done went their own way, start making their own decisions, or somebody that's new, like maybe they're coming from another faith, or they just don't know what to do. So like to that person that's on the fence, what inspiration do you have for that person? What advice do you have for that person about saying like, hey, give your life to Christ? Like what advice do you have for that person?
I think that it's very much like, this is the fact. There is not one person living, walking, breathing that has encountered Christ and said that it was a failed encounter, said that it wasn't worth it, said that nothing happened. Like nobody at all that has encountered Christ has said that. And when I say encounter, it's not just hearing about him. I mean like an encounter with God. And anybody that has had that has been different in whatever type of way. They have said that something in awe happened to them. So I would just, when I pray for people who are unbelievers, there are certain scriptures in the Bible that you can pray for unbelievers, like give them a heart of flesh instead of a heart of stone, consecrate them, different things that the Bible has for us to pray. And so I really would tell the person that, like, unless you've had that encounter, like, what do you have to lose? Because right now, if you're like, okay, life stinks and there's nothing else, why not choose God? But the one thing that I will say is that the only regret that you'll have is that you didn't do it sooner. That's just it. Like if you haven't encountered God, the only regret you're going to have after you take a step to do it is that you did not do it sooner. Because the Lord says that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. That's a part of Hebrews 11, where it talks about all those faith in Hebrews 11. But if he's a rewarder of those who seek him, why would you going into an encounter, not get, he knows exactly what you need.
Exactly.
And so he's waiting for you to step. And I'm telling you, like, whatever you need to happen in that moment, God is going to do that very thing. And he knows what everybody needs. Sometimes people just need to feel comfort. Sometimes people just need to feel love, or it's just one word. There have been plenty of times where I could barely pray for someone. It's just one word. And they're like, this word to me, I'm
Thank
like,
you,
you're crying,
right?
but to them, God knew exactly what it was. And so it's just one of those things where if you're on the fence, the only regret you're going to have is that you did not do it sooner. And when I think about being obedient to God, that's my only thing, is like, if I would have been obedient sooner, then, this, and this. But the beauty is that there's grace and redemption on the other side of that decision as well, and so he's a redeemer of all things. Amen. And he makes all things work together for the good. And so once you're able to really take that step, really the sky isn't even the limit. You don't know what could happen. Eyes have not seen and ears have not heard.
That's prepared. That's a fact.
So it's one of those things where I would really like tell someone, like, why not?
And I agree with that. And I gotta chime in on that one too, because in my life, like I said, similar to yours, with growing up in church and having a relationship with God, but then you go off to college, you do your own thing, you get out of college, you think you've grown, and it's like, God, like, okay, I gotta go upside your head real quick to bring you back to reality. And sometimes instead of going through those moments, and with mentoring the youth, I always had those conversations like, don't wait until you get into a bad space when your only option is God. Try him when you got all the options, because now God really like, oh, you really locked in. Like kind of going to what you said about, hey, I know I'm already saved, but hey, something is on me, God. I want you to know and understand that I'm choosing you. Out of all these options, I'm choosing you. And that's what God did for us. He chose us. Like, we didn't choose him, so it's like, just hearing that, again, those are just great reminders for everybody, but even to myself as well. So with the last one, what's your favorite Bible verse and why?
My favorite Bible verse will have to be Psalm 139:23. So it says, search me and know my heart, try me and know my thoughts. And so I really love that verse because, again, I'm giving God full access to me. So when I'm praying, I always pray for wisdom. But I also like preface my prayers with like that Psalm 139:23, where I'm giving him access to search all of my anxious thoughts, all the things, all my opinions, everything that's in the way, so that when he starts speaking to me, it's not coming through a filter of, humanly judgment, my opinions, things that have happened throughout the day, like I want him to test and try all of those thoughts so they can be out of the way, so that whatever he needs from me, he can do. Because I know that part of the way he created me is everything I do, I'm listening to what the Lord is telling me to do.
Right.
And so if I have things that are in the way, if my filter is dirty, it's not helping me help anyone. So I want, like I said, I want to be effective every single day, because the Bible tells us to number our days. We don't know, what our days will be. But I want to make sure that I'm always an instrument for use. And so that means that, I have to be open. And I know his side of the instrument is open, but, is my side open and is it clean? Right.
Yes.
I want to make sure.
And wow, you just, so many things that you're making me think about, because when you're saying the full access, you said that earlier, and then now you're saying that now, and then you're saying your favorite verse, and now that makes so much sense, like giving God the access. And I think oftentimes people are so scared to give God the full access, because it's things that we want to still do, that we're trying to hold on to. We're still trying to hold on to those fleshly things, those worldly things. So we're like, all right, I don't want to give God access to everything. I want you to help me to get in this house. I want you to help me with this car, with my significant other, with my kids. But hey, this one thing, this unforgiveness that I have in my heart, I don't want you to touch that. Or hey, this one thing that I'm doing, like the addiction, anything that it is. And I think like that's the biggest thing. I forgot what Bible verse it was, but it was talking where it was saying like, send me, like God was talking about like, who can I?
Yep. Who can I send?
Yeah. And he was like, and the verse was like, send me. Like, and I remember when I read that verse, I had that thought, and it was like thinking in my mind, like, before you say send me, you got to know that, like you said, if God tells you to do something, you got to do it. Ain't no running around. Jonah tried it. Many
Yeah.
people tried it. Moses, like, you got to do it. So ain't no running from it. So it's like, and I think oftentimes as people, we're like, I don't want to say I'm going to give it all, because then if he give me this and I don't have it, but then that goes to your point earlier where, like, where we're weak, God is strong. So even those moments when we don't have it all, like what you were saying, like, I don't know how I did this. I don't know where it came from, but it's like where we are weak, God is perfecting right there. Like, that's where he is, right there in the middle of that weakness, to show us, like, boom, this is me. So then when we get to those points of doing different things, it's like, it's not to give us self-gratitude. No, this is like glory to God, because we know it wasn't by us. So just so many things that just went through my mind when you saying that, and I just wanted to chime in on saying that. And I know that that was the last question, but I also want to just open it up to see if there's any other thoughts that you have as far as inspiration, like whether it's towards women, wives, men, whoever. I just want to open up the floor to you to see if there's anything that additional that you want to share with the people, because again, you dropping so many gems right now. You drop.
Yeah. Yeah, no, back to what you're saying about just kind of a lot of times we like to keep our hands on a situation. And it really shows if there's one thing that God told me, and it's kind of like a rhyming statement, but I always think about it. But he said, what is real can be healed. And so basically, if we think of a regular situation, and let's just talk about like an emergency situation. If we're lost and we tell somebody, hey, I'm downtown, but in reality, we're, out in the country, if that emergency assistance comes to a different location, it doesn't help us. And so if we're asking for help, we should be asking from the location where we are. And so when I teach people how to when I teach people how to pray, I tell them to pray from your position that you're currently in, because that's where your power is. So if all you know about yourself is, I'm not sure about my purpose, I'm not sure about my gifting, but you're like, okay, I feel like I want to pray. You pray from being a son or a daughter of the Most High, because that's where your power is. Knowing that, okay, I love Christ, He's my Father. That means that whatever He has is mine as well. So now I'm praying from that position, but I'm not trying to speak in all these different tongues. I'm not trying to do all these different things, but I'm just standing in my authority as a son and a daughter. God's going to honor it. And that's where your power is. Don't try to pray from a different position. But also when you're coming to God, there are a lot of times where people will say, hey, I'm praying, I don't feel like my prayers get answered. And you have to pray from where you are. So if the Lord sees that right now you're confused, but you're like, oh no, I know that already. And He's trying to help you from where you are, and you're like, God, like, you're not answering my question though. You're saying this, but God knows, like, hey, you got to start here first. We all know that He's a God of order, and that things have to go in certain places. And so whenever we're in a location, we have to be real, and we have to say, okay, Lord, like, I am depressed or I am anxious, and I don't want to put another emotion on it. Like, a lot of times people ask for prayer and they're like, hey, I am mad, I'm so angry, I'm so upset. But it's a secondary emotion. Where are you at first? Like, are you embarrassed? Let's pray from, hey, I'm embarrassed, which caused me to be angry, and then bitter and resentment came. I can't pray for those other emotions until we get to the root of a problem. And I think that that's a lot of things that people will find out, is that when the Bible talks about, kind of tearing things from the root, if there is rotten fruit coming off of a tree, picking the rotten fruit off doesn't help. You have to take it and pull it from the root, which means that, like, there are a lot of things that we face in life, and we just pick the fruit off so nobody can see, but the tree itself is rotten. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to start over. But the part about God not being in time is that He can redeem time and take the time that you have and make it more than what you were wasting and what you lost.
Exactly.
And so it's like, don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to, go back to square one, and don't be afraid to be yourself. The world, like, we need each other. We're a body. The Bible tells us we're one body with many members. And so, a lot of times people want to be the parts of the body that show, on stage, on camera, hands, feet, face, all the stuff that what you can see. But the reality of the situation is the arteries, the muscles, all of those things that are inside of the body, without those things functioning, the arms and the limbs can't move.
Come on.
So, those people that are on the forefront in the body, that are on the front line, some of the intercessors and stuff, we need you guys praying. We need you guys doing your part so that the people who are very visible in the body can do what they need to do and do it effectively.
And,
so it's just, it's kind of just being yourself.
yeah.
Being yourself. And if God called you to be whatever he wanted you to be, he knew that that's how you're going to get the best use out of something. Like the manufacturer of a thing knows how to get the best use out of a thing. How many times we put things together and it works, and then all of a sudden, like some of the videos online, like I was today years old when I found out.
When I found out, exactly. Yep.
I'm pretty sure God is always, laughing, saying like, hey, you could have always been much more effective.
Come to the manual.
Yeah, when things are broken, they go back to the manufacturer so that he can show you how it's supposed to work. He knows how to put you back together. He knows all the different pieces and parts of us. And so it's like, just really trusting God and not trying to be something that you're not, because the body needs who you really are and not who you aspire to be. That's how we'll move forward.
Wow. I love it. That's just so much encouragement, so much inspiration. I know that that's going to touch many people. And I thank you for sharing that. Like, look, got to be real to heal. Even you talked about like just being where you are, praying and staying locked in on where you are, where you're at in that core position, that motion, find it and stand in that point and pray on it. And God will meet you there to get you to where you need to be. So look, I don't want to put no more on top of that. I thought that was great, Cris. I love it. I know that this is going to be inspiration for a lot of people. So I just want to tell you, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate you. And to everybody else, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, and share. You never know who needs this inspiration. And I'm going to see you guys next week. To God be the glory. Bye.